So we are discussing cereals and millets. Rice is a staple food, but more than the 60% of the world population. Globally, predominant rice is the culture spreads across the continents of Asia, Africa, Latin America, and southern United States of America. But about 90% of the world rice is produced and consumed in large areas of the Southeast and South Asia, from the Pakistan, Japan, and to Japan. In India, rice is the most important intensity to crop, occupies in the 44% to 44.9 million hectares of land. Wheat is the world's most important food crop. The important countries of the growing the wheat. Wheat is on the Russia, USA, China, Canada, India, France, and Italy. Maize is one of the most important cereal crops in the world. Sorghum is popularly known as the jowar, the most important food and the food crop of India. It is the mostly grown under the rain-fed condition in soil that are the less suitable to the maize and the wheat crop, bajra, and second. And cereal millet is in the important minor millet crop is the ragi. It is said for Kaina. Is the marma in Telugu is the ragi. In English is the finger millet. The widely grown crop is the tropical and the subtropical regions of the world. In terms of the ragi production, the Gujarat would be the first place. The followed the Galwa, Nagar, the Valley, and the American countries, especially where the climate adjusts to not the permit the cultivation of other cereals, is mostly grown under the dry fair farming conditions. It is cultivated in many parts of the country, but is the mainly grown in the Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra. Rice, the climatic factors that is the influence of rice production, altitude, latitude, temperature, rainfall, and dye length, photo period, wind, humidity. Altitude is the rising in the grown from the Meena sea level of the river valleys of the parts of the Kerala as the high as the 200 meters, 200 as the Kashmir Himalayan slope has been the observed that the higher altitude as the average rice fields, the higher than the those obtained in the plains. However, the rice grown at the thousand elevation takes to reach the longer and the first of the more than the top grown to the sea the level. Latitude rice can be grown from the tropic and subtropical warm temperature regions up to 40%, 40 degrees north latitude and between the 70 degrees and 140 east latitude. Highest rice yield is obtained between the 32 to 45 north equator. The evidence of the indicates that the average rice yields are star that generally increase as the distance from the equator increases. Although rice is the primarily a tropical and subtropical crop, best yields are the obtained in temperature regions such as the Italy, and North Japan, and Australia. In these temperature regions are the rice grown under the assured the irrigated condition. Temperature. Temperature is one of the limiting factors in temperate regions of the world. The temperature influences not only in the growth duration but also the growth pattern of the rice plant. The average temperature required throughout the life period is the crop ranges from the 21 to 35 degrees. Rainfall. The practice of the rice cultivation is greatly influenced by the rainfall. onset and the withdrawal of the monsoon. Distribution and the rainfall is the extent in irrigation of the facilities developed in different regions are the main factors of the growing the productivity of the crop. Water is considered to be the most important factor in rice production. Photoperiodically, rice is the short day plant. Based on the response to laden rice varieties can be classified into photosensitive and photoperiod non-sensitive varieties. It has been found that all the long duration varieties of the photosensitive that can be grown only during the specific season. Short duration varieties are non-sensitive to photoperiod and can be grown in any part of the year. Wind, gentle winds, the considered the beneficial for rice production as CO2 is the replenished with increasing. Heavy winds are the determinant, especially at heading time. Humidity, the most favorable humidity for the flowering, 70 to 80%, and the flowering is the maybe at the humidity below 40 and the above 90s. Seasons, there are the three main seasons of the growing the rice. The most important kharif crop grown in the June, July, harvested in November, December. Coastal Telangana, mainly June, November, mm, and December to April. Soils, rice can be the grown under the fairly wide range of the soil condition. Soils having the good water, reaction capacity, good amount of the clay and organic matter. The ideal it can be tolerate a wide range of the soil reaction. What it does is have the vapor from the acid soils. It grows well in the soils having the pH range is 5.5 to 5.6.5 pH. The soils most suited for the cultivation of the rice crop have neutral soils like the clay loams, and the loamy soils. And the soils are the capable of holding water for the longer period for sustained. Soils most suited for the cultivation of rice crop have the heavy soils like the claymy loams, and the loamy soils are the soils are the capable for holding water for the longer period for sustained crop growth. The most important soil groups for the which rice can be successfully grown in India are the alluvial blocklet, laterite, petty, and marshy soils. Rice culture. The methods of the rice cultivation can be grouped into the upland or dry cultivation, and lowland and wet cultivation. Upland rice refers to the crop grown on higher land, hillsides of the area where the neither irrigation or on water retaining the device is available. It grows in the moisture just like any other dryland crop. Generally, lowland rice refers to the crop grown on low-lying areas where the water can be controlled and retained to keep the soil constantly submerged either by irrigation, by rainfall. Methods of the sowing. Common methods of the sowing rice are the broadcasting, dibbling, drilling. Broadcasting in areas where the rains set in early. Land is the plow to flowerize the soil and suppress the weeds. The poles are the crushed with the help of the blady barrows. The wooden pole block when the monsoon sets in the seed is the broadcast and covered by the soil depth 5 to 10 centimeters. If the seeds are the soaked for the 6 to 8 Dibbling, the practice of the dibbling the seed behind the plough at regular intervals in the Vagu, the parts of the Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra. The sprouted seeds can be also dipped in lines in the soil is plowed and the level. The yield obtained by the dipped crop is no more than the that of a broadcast. Another advantage of the dipping is the uniform generation, resulting in an even start. The dipped crop in the intercultural operation and the cropping the wild rices can be carried out with rice. It has been observed that the crop as the able it lines of the is able to resist drought better than the broadcast crop. Drilling rice is the most common method of the sowing. Certain parts of the Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh. This method is the enables the cultivator to cover larger area within the limited sowing period. Drilling has the same advantage as preparation of the seed bed. In order the rice produce the healthy seedlings of the rice, seed beds are the carefully prepared with dimensions of 1, 1.4 meters in any convenient place. The mud available in the 30 to 40 centimeter wide channel cover bed of the bed can be used the rising the level of the seed beds. The channels between the two beds can be the utilized for the drilling, draining water from the beds of the after sowing. The seed beds have the manured the heavily, normally 5 to 10 part of the loads in the form of the manure. Pulling and the transplanting when the seedlings are 50 to 20 centimeter tall, they will be the sixth leaf stage. This is the proper stage of the pull the seedlings. The time of the pulling of the seedling, greater care has to be taken to see that the last injury is caused of the root system after the pulling of the seedlings. It is the always better to transport them the within 24 hours. Normally, the seedling that are the pulled in the previous evening are utilized the transplanting on the next day morning. In any circumstances, seedling should not be kept more than the 3 days after the pulling of the mortality. It will be the high and the yield potential will be considered the reduced. 2 to 3 seedlings per will have to be the planted adopting the recommended spacing as per the variety and the season of the plantings, the accommodate the required number of rails for the unit area. Nutrient required. The data is obtained the several workers indicate that the amount of the nutrients are needed to the high, low, and rice. The nutrient ratio is the plant to be good index of the fertilizers required by the crop. The amount of the nutrient absorbed by the plants governed by many factors such as the variety, season, soil condition, the chemical behavior of the soil nutrients. Hence, the only sure method of the determining the amount of and kind of the fertilizer needed by the particular soil is by a combination of the actual field test soil analysis to take the study of the experience of the crop. Organic menus. Organic menus including the plant and the animal waste. They have the low content of the plant nutrients. They must first undergo the decomposition before the nutrients become available to the plants. Organic nitrogen from the green manure, however, is the release is the fast and is the effective as the inorganic fertilizers, rice straw, and the other organic wastes liberate the nitrogen gradually throughout the season. Besides the major nutrients, is the materials also contain the trace elements, crop residues, rice, rice straw, maize stalks, and other similar organic materials are good source of the plant nutrients. For example, one ton of the rice straw in the form of the stables gives about 5 to 9 kgs of nitrogen and 40 to 45 kgs of the potassium per hectare, besides other nutrients in the minor quantities. However, the available nitrogen is deleted from the paddy straw or from any other bulky organic manure or crop residues only a few days after the transplanting. The establishment of the rice seedlings is greatly regarded as the residues contain high carbon and relation where the petrol content. Hence, during the decomposition, some of the available nitrogen in the soils is utilized by the microorganisms, and hence the end ceilings are the disadvantage with respect to the nitrogen availability. Some of the methods, some of the adapted prevent composition. Allow is the organic manure to the soil, allow the enough time in the past 2 to 4 weeks of the before transplanting rice. Apply the radially available inorganic from the nitrogen at transplanting to ensure the adequate nitrogen supply for the establishment of seedlings. Compost is the materials before the applying of the to the field. Relative efficiency of the forms of nitrogenous fertilizers. Rice can be used both nitrate and the ammonium forms of the nitrogen efficiently. However, in the early stages of the plant growth, rice prefers the ammonical from the under the anaerobic conditions because the nitrate forms are the decomposed and lost by the denitrification, the reduced zone of the soil are lost by the deep percoloration. Under the submerged condition, ammonium containing or ammonium producing fertilizers is a good source of the nitrogen. There was no there was no significant difference among the different ammonia containing nitrogen sources or the equal nitrogen bases. Ammonium sulfate and the urea are the equal value because both the supply nitrogen to the rice plant is the same from the ammonia. Method of application. The efficiency of the applied nitrogen in flooded soil is the considerably improved by the if the nitrogen fertilizers is placed in the reduced zone. Surface application of the ammonium fertilizers results in rapid nitrogen nitrification in the surface oxide layer due to the presence of the abundant oxygen. Once ammonical nitrogen is converted to the nitrate nitrogen, slowly percolated the reduced to the layer. Some of the quantity of nitrate nitrogen utilized the paddy goods that is the come across and portion of the nitrate nitrogen is leached down behind the root zone. Major quantity of the nitrogen that reaches the reduced the layer will be the lost till the elemental nitrogen to the atmosphere due to the denitrification of the account of the anaerobic bacteria. Time of application recommended those fertilizers can be applied the two to three split doses depending upon the duration of the variety and type of the soil. For medium to long duration varieties, nitrogen is to the be applied in the three equal splits. The first 1/3 dose of the nitrogen is to apply the last putting of the incorporated the thoroughly to the reduced dose. This dose is the fertilizer is necessary for the only establishment of the seedlings and for the initial tailoring. The second 1/3 1/3 dose of the nitrogen is to be applied 20 to 25 days after planting to produce the optimum under. Depth of the application. Depth of the placement of nitrogen is the fertilizer makes all the differences between the efficient use or the wastage. Ammonium sources of the fertilizer nitrogen are the most stable and the epic effectively utilized rice plant in flooded soil. When the placed in the reduced zone 4 to 5 centimeters below the soil surface, nitrate nitrogen is stable only in the upstage zone and hence should be not be the applied in the reduced zone as it will be definitely and the loss. Phosphorus, when investigators around the world reported the low end rice crop failed to respond to the phosphate fertilizers even though the upland crop grown in the same soil shows the positive response. The, the problem of the phosphorus is threefold. It is the present in the soil relatively in small quantity. Major part of the phosphorus present in the soil is not readily available to the crop form to be the soil complex. Even plant availability forms to reverted back to the less availability forms of the phosphate soon after application. Moreover, the only 25 to 26% applied phosphorus is recovered by the paddy crop. Phosphorus is the required for the rice plant in the initial stage for fruit development and hence the increasingly absorbed by the rice from the planting flowering greater proportion is the utilized in elongation stage. Source of the phosphorus of the inorganic source of the phosphorus rock phosphate. The most popular and bone meal is available widely in the many countries. In lowland rice soil, there is the relatively little difference among the phosphate sources, except in extremely acid, extremely alkaline soils. Superphosphate is good source in all types of the soils, except the extremely acid on acid soils. Rock phosphate or the bone meal is good. Bone meal is the rock phosphate is the preferable in the lateritic soils where the fixation of the phosphorus is very high. In alkaline soils, the rock phosphate is interior to other forms. Methods of application, broadcasting before last budding or planting, drilling to the soil, dipping of the shielding of the slurry mode of the phosphorus, application in the pellet form. Time of the application, rate of application, potassium is the requirement. The rice plant is the much higher than the nitrogen and the phosphorus. About 80 to 90% the potassium absorbed by the plant is found in the straw. If the stubbles are the properly incorporated, there is no need of the apply of the potassium. The greatest need for the potassium is the most likely to occur in sandy soils. Research data obtained by the several workers show the little effect of the potassium and low end clay soils. Source fertilizers such as the potassium sulfate in the muriate of the potassium, magnesium sulfate, and are the important source of the potassium. The zinc deficiency, soil application zinc sulfate at the 50 kgs hectare before the sowing in the every season or any alternate years will be the prevent the zinc deficiency. When the zinc deficiency, when the zinc deficiency is observed in the standing crop, spraying of 0.2 zinc sulfate and corrects the deficiency. 2 or 3 sprays of the are needed to the 5 day 5 days interval. Water requirement. The water requirement varies according to the growing season during the variety of types of the soil preparation modified, harvesting. In Nizamabad and Medak districts, the rice sugar cane intercropping of the rice belongs to the genus Oryza and the family Poaceae. The genus Oryza includes 27 accepted species, which is the true species Oryza sativa, Oryza glabrioma, are cultivated. All cultivated varieties of the rice in Asia, Europe, and America belong to the species of the Oryza sativa, and while many of the cultivated varieties of the West Africa belong to the species of Oryza glabrioma, there are the nearly 8,000 botanical different rice varieties of the rare recognized in the world of the grown all of the tropical regions. Oryza sativa is the japonica is grown only in the subtropics and the warm temperatures regions such as the Spain, Japan, Italy, and West USA. Whereas whatever the Janithis are grown the both tropics and the warm temperature regions. Indicas mainly grown in the tropics. They they are the generally all more than 150 centimeters, various growing leafy profiles, the tillering late maturing the phosphate and acceptable to the loading. They are not respond to higher doses of nitrogen, low yielding and they cannot stand heavy fertilization. They they have the persisted the countries centuries in the tropical Asia because of their the ability to produce the moderate but stable yield even the under the adverse conditions such as the deep water and tendu. Japanicas are the mainly grown in the subtropical and the warm temperature regions of the world. They are the relatively short with the sturdy straw, narrow, erect, the dark green leaves. Japonicas and Javanicas. So these are the intermediate types of the Indicas and Japonicas, mostly confined to the equatorial countries like the Indonesia. Photoperiod intensive low phosphorescent heavy thick club and the non-loading the poor tilling. These are the mainly cultivated to the tropics and the warm temperature regions. They have the morphologically resembles the indicates the but freely cross. Diseases, the blast, Periclasia oryzes symptoms, the fungus attacks the leaves, nodes in the neck of the panicle. It develops on the leaves of the small specks, which slowly enlarge into the spindle state of the spots in different size. Last, the control, the spray of the adenophenols, pedopause, and the carbendazole, and then trichlorozole, judicious application of the nitrogenous fertilizers, grow resistant varieties like the NLR 28,600, NLR 33,892, NLR 33,641. Kharif season grow the Swarnamukhi, Vijayata, IR64, Swati, NLR, and Rabi season. Brown spot, Elementosporium oryzae, caused by the brown spot. Control of the spraying of the monocrop. And next one is the seed treatment of the carbendazole at the rate of the 3 kg per of seed. And next one, growing resistant varieties, sheath blight, sheath blight, Rhizocactina solane. And next one is the stem root sclerotium oryzae, caused by the sclerotium oryzae. Bacterial blight, Xanthomonas oryzae, and Circularia oryzae. Rhizocactina symptoms, the disease transmitted by the Nepotoxis species. The initial symptoms of the start 7 to 10 days after the leafhopper transmits the virus. The yellowing of the leaf tips is the lower leaves. The yellowing of the symptom changes the orange yellowish color to from the up to downwards. In several cases, of stunting also observed the affected plants produce the small panicles with the discolored the grains controlling sheath root sarcolemon horizon. The root occurs the leaf sheath is the controlling of the spread of the false smut Islago variants. There are all of the diseases affected by the rice varieties. Wheat, wet, wheat production is the recorded tremendous improvement of our country, which is the increased 3 times productivity and 2.5 times of the area over the last 3 decades. A turning point of the came in the history of wheat cultivation in India 1963 with the introduction of the dwarf photosensitive high yielding Mexican wheat varieties developed by the Nobel laureate Dr. Norman E. Borlaug, Lermo Rojo, and Sonara 54, the first two varieties introduced in India, Lermava Rojo and Sonara 54. These are the both are the introduced in India. The Green Revolution was realized only due to the introduction to the Mexican dwarf wheat varieties. Wheat is not well adapted to the saline and acid soil. Although useful to the genetic resistance to the soils, this is the foliage disease insect attack high mean of the temperature that the cause of excessive rapid and abnormal development, humid, low in the tropics. Now, presently, exclude wheat, although some of the wheat is grown in the lowland areas below the latitude where is the winter is dry, is now cultivated in the all regions of the world with the exception of the lowland tropics. Climatic requirement soil is grown the variety of the soils in India, clay loam soils with the good structure and moderate water holding capacity is the ideal for the wheat cultivation. Care should be taken to avoid the very poor force the excavate drain the soil. Soil should be neutral in the reaction. Heavy soils with the good drainage and that are suitable for the wheat cultivation under the dry conditions, such as the kind of the soils observe the varieties. A bumper crop of the wheat can be obtained low, slowly adapted high yielding disease resistant varieties chosen the cultivation of the particular area. Different varieties of the wheat variety, crop rotation, mixed cropping with the introduction to the dwarf Mexican wheat varieties of the serious crop rotation and the sequences have been the developer involving the wheat. These crop sequences have been the designated as the crop kept area, which is that denotes the farmers can choose only cropping sequences best suited to the area depending upon the soil and the climatic condition. Seeds and sowing, seed rate and the spacing, depth sowing, method sowing, menus and the fertilizers, water management, the intercultivation of weed control, harvesting and threshing. Important pest and the disease of wheat is the mainly wheat is the termites, microtermis, obesae and odometus obuscus. This is loose spot of wheat, Islago triticale, kernel bunt of wheat, Nevosia tica, the flag spot of wheat, Eurocystis triticale, leaf brown of the orange rust, Vaccinia reconditata, the yellow strip rust, Vaccinia stipiornis, leaf blight, alternated tritica, hair copper oxidase disease or Tundu yellow ear rot. The disease is caused by the combined infection of the nematode Angonia triticale and the bacterium Carbonium triticale. Maize is essentially tropical plant. It is also mainly adapted in the being cultivated in temperate regions. Soils, maize crop rotation is a mixed crop classing of the crop varieties. Red corn, Gia maize, uh, mint corn, Gia maize, flour corn, Gia maize, Atlantica. These are different types of the varieties. Maize. Maize also they can affect the stalk rot, the Irvinia cartiporia species here, downy mildew, Scleropora sacchariae. Next, common spot is Plago maedis. Next one is the Lycoderma maedis, Xenia sorte rustis, leaf blight. The symptoms of the control measures are given under the sorghum. Sorghum Sorghum was the wide distribution around the Asia, Africa, and the Central America. Soils also they mainly grow in the Kharif and Rabi summer seasons in North India mostly grow. Sorghum should fly the other in a subtena. Sorghum needs control a subtena. Sorghum needs control a Bajra. Bajra is the crop mostly grown in the tropical and temperate regions. Important countries grow in the Bajra, China, India, Pakistan, Iran. Climate requirement of the soils, the Kharif and summer crop. Ragi. Ragi is the mainly grown in the grain, but the grain is favorite food of the all toiling classes are very useful to persons suffering from the diabetes. Kharif climate. These are the important growing the district of the Karnulu, Antapur, Prakasham, and Kadapa. Koralu. Okay, these are the different cereals and pellets.